Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. It is Sunday night, one of the last two Sunday nights we have with this show, and next Sunday night's going to be a doozy. It'll be interesting to see if it stays on Sunday night, because Oscars, but also, like, who moves their finale? I've never seen that happen. I'll be interested. I don't think we were going to hear any news until after this week, and we're now at this week, so we'll see what happens. But nevertheless, we only got 2 weeks left with this show, and for me, it's been the best thing on TV all year. It's very short into the year, but it might be the best thing on TV I've watched in a while. That's because the adaptation, for me, has just been so spectacularly flawless as it adapts something that I absolutely love. And when I think of, like, things that are just such brilliant adaptations for me, it's like Sandman this. Depending on what I'm watching and talking about, that'll determine on which one I think is a better adaptation. This thing has been flawless. I've loved every second, and I am so jacked for this week. What am I talking about? Well, you can pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to take a watch and dive in, spoiler-filled, into HBO's The Last of Us, Season 1, Episode 8, titled When We Are in Need. And let me tell you, man, when people are in need in this world, up shit happens. We are getting ready to go to one of the darker places in the Last of Us world, and I've really got to shift my mindset, man. I didn't play this stretch of the game again. I've had a very busy week, and the last 2 days when I haven't been at work, I've been editing Mandalorian stuff, the other Pedro Pascal daddy show, and I've got a very different vibe of Pedro and of the score that's kicking in my head. I'm not hearing the Last of Us score right now. And Ludwig Göransson's got a very different vibe than what the Last of Us is doing. But this is one of those stretches of the game that, like, as a player, it's seared into your head because it involves one of the tougher fights. You know, you're right toward the end of the game, and the showdown that is coming between David and Ellie. Oh man, I mean, like, this is a stretch too in the game where I'll be interested to see how they adapt. You know, the way that they've kind of changed and tweaked things. Like, this is one where I'd be interested to see how you play, and I thought maybe they might change things up a little bit. And I could see some of the things that they might remove. And it'll be interesting to see how they consolidate specifically how and why Ellie will come to trust David, and more importantly, not just David, but his sidekick James, who's being played by our boy, the original OG Joel, Troy Baker. I'm so excited. But in the preview last week, we saw that cabin, the massive cabin, like, lodge thing on fire. And that is very much the game. And if they're going where I think they're going, like I said, the last week, which we should probably dive into before we talk about things I'm looking forward to this week, but these 2 weeks, for anybody who is not sure, and honestly, you know, I think all of you are crazy if you're not, but if you're still not sold on Bella Ramsey, the combo of last week's emotion and this week's survival, we'll say, should totally sell you on Bella. I'm so excited to see what she does and how she steps up in this episode. And as I said last week, if we do indeed jump to part 2 for season 2, this is the episode that's gonna sell people like myself that kind of feel like you might need. Give me a season of stuff that's not in the video game world, or that expands on some of the flashbacks that we've had, so that Bella can age up a little bit. This could be the episode that makes you go, nah, we could do part 2 like 2 years from now. Like, you just start writing and filming that season now. We could handle this. I'm pumped. And honestly, even if she crushes it, I still hope that there's a season in between part 1 and part 2 as far as the game goes. Or they find a way to break part 2 up maybe into 2 seasons. Either way, I don't know. I'm pumped to see where we're going. But like I said, before we get to where we're going, we got a few minutes. Might as well talk about last week. Because as I was editing, I tell you, I didn't realize myself, even having played that stretch of the game right before, like how, I mean, I knew it was close to being like the most accurate stretch of the game that we've seen in the show itself. But man, like when I was editing, the amount of footage from the game I had to incorporate, and I had to shake up the positioning of certain things because they do move things around to make stuff work better. Just the consolidation of doing everything in the Halloween shop rather than going to another store with music and then having a chase through the like doing it all, like that's the brilliant stuff of the show. But everything that was in there, I mean, so much game accurate stuff, and there were some really cool things as I was editing it and going through. Like I basically I record the episode, so I watch it a second time, and then I edit it, so it's like watching it a third time, and you really do pick up on things. And one of the things I loved about rewatching last week was seeing and really feeling the Captain Quan and Riley perspectives on the world that we're in from Ellie's viewpoint. This is a piece of the game where yes, you play as Ellie, but it really feels like a shared story. You're kind of living in this world with these two characters, and they're both going through and feeling a lot of the same things. And while that's happening in this episode, I really thought they did a better job of making it feel like it was coming from Ellie's perspective, and we'll talk about that. But this in particular really kind of pulled her out, and when you see the conversations and the fights that she gets into with Riley, you can really see how Riley's perspective of Fedra and the Fireflies differs from Ellie's perspective, and you understand that because you get to see Captain Quan first, and you understand what they've been going through rather than living in with the Fireflies like Riley would have been doing. And seeing those kind of 2 points of view and how they impact Ellie certainly informs and impacts different moments that we'll talk about in a minute, like later on in the episode when she's trying to get Riley to stay. And it's like, look, I don't think either of these ways is like maybe the right one. But if we're both here, like, we could change the world. And I like that you get to feel that. And like I said, the more you like rewatching it, you really do see these two different, completely shaped perspectives, even though Riley and Ellie lived in the same kind of world. And I thought that was really interesting and something you felt a lot more the second time through. One of the other things that I love too, that we just totally missed getting caught up in the world of it all. But when the camera is scanning all the different things in Ellie and Riley's room, you see, no pun intended, Volume 1, which is great because we have Volume 2 in the show and in the game. So I thought that was just like a nice little Easter egg. And those are the things I love, the little detail type things that you get dropped in the show. That's what really makes the quality of what we get ascend so much higher than other shows and properties that we watch. It's paying attention to the little details. Something like that I loved. And then something that I didn't necessarily love 2 weeks ago was, Joel not getting that picture of Sarah and turning it down. Tommy tries to give him one. He says no. Ellie ends up snagging it and giving it to Joel later. I was like, it's fine. You don't really need it. But it's one of those pieces of the game that like kind of makes a lot of sense. And then you get to this episode, and Ellie gets a picture that she doesn't get in the game. And I was sitting there while I was editing going, I wonder if that was intentional. Like they swapped who got the picture and what that could mean. Like in the game, like I said last week, when you go to try to print it, the printer's broken. So the fact that Ellie gets the picture, I was like, that kind of feels like maybe that replaced Joel not getting the picture. And Joel could still get the picture, right? Like Ellie very much and very easily could have found a picture of Sarah in Marie's house and snagged it, and she might give it to Joel at the end of the season. And that, I promise you, if that happens, that shit gonna punch you in the chest, man. But if they don't, I kind of like the fact that you almost flip-flopped it and gave Ellie a picture that, could mean so much to what that character is, and like, that thing that reminds her to fight for every second. That while we haven't seen her reference that picture, I bet you she's probably got that in her pack somewhere. And that is something that can be that reminder that pushes you. Like, you fight for every second you get when you have, someone to fight for. And that was a lot of what last week's episode, I've seen some people say this is a filler episode. Again, I said this last week, people that say stuff like that, not real fans of the game, man. I mean, this is one of my favorite areas of the game. I love it. It's in the world where things are like scary and rough and dire, and the end, is very tragic. is like one of the more fun stretches you get in the game, and what it means for Ellie's character and what her motivations are as they push forward. It's an important backstory to tell, and the way that they do it, where she like is remembering it at the door, like, do I run, do I try to get out of here, or do I stick it out with Joel, right? Like, not like she doesn't have anywhere to go, get on the horse, turn around, go to Tommy, you know where to go. But no, I'm a fight because this person is someone that I care for and that I'm going to fight for. So I kind of loved that you kind of give Ellie that. And you can still, like I said, still end up getting Joel the picture with Sarah. But I thought that was kind of like a cool flip in the perspective of like, oh man, I was disappointed 2 weeks, but now when I think about it, this is kind of, this works a little bit better. One of the other things too that I thought was interesting last week, you really get a child's perspective on things, specifically like a post-apocalyptic baby perspective. And I say that as someone who constantly looks back every 5-10 years and goes, man, at 30, I was still a kid. At 25, I was still a kid. 18, definitely a child. 14, like, baby, man. You're a baby in the world. And I think some of the perspectives and things and the way that Ellie and Riley look at things, like, really kind of tell you that, one, not only are they younger people, but, like, these are people who didn't live with this stuff beforehand. Something like calling Marlene old just felt like a very young person kind of response to, like, oh, yeah, Marlene is older. Marlene's probably, like, in her mid-30s. Marlene's probably close to my age. I don't think I'm old. Like, that was something that, throughout, Druckmann and Mazin kind of just give you these things where, like, the way they respond to an escalator, like, people who didn't get to experience this stuff in the past. Getting these moments is one of the magical things about last week. Same with just, like, the way Riley responds to seeing the Victoria's Secret stuff and be like, I don't understand it. And then Ellie kind of pokes fun, and she giggles and is like, oh, man, I was trying to picture you. Like, that's not a conversation that I would have with someone that was also 36 if we were in the mall. If it was one of my buddies, you might make a joke more in the line of like, man, remember when you came home to that? But the idea of like, I don't know. I guess if you weren't having them, I guess the difference is the giggle. There it is. The giggle is the thing that would change, right? Like, I wouldn't giggle. I would be like, oh man. Like, if I was picturing, like, my crush in some Victoria's Secrets, I don't think I'm giggling. You know what I mean? Same thing when Riley talks about getting the shit detail, literally. That felt very much like a young thing. As someone who manages a team that has younger staff members, people who come right out of college, this is not any of my current members or former members, but I've dealt with a lot of younger people in the work environment, and like, if you gave them like a cruddy gig or a cruddy assignment because that was just the way shit broke, pun intended, that week or whatever, or that stretch, it's usually being driven for legitimate reasons, but young people would take that as like, oh man, this is what they must think of me. Now, don't get me wrong, that could be very well what they thought of Riley, but again, just like that kind of thought process, a little bit younger. And clearly, if you're talking about someone out of time, Ellie's fascination with sci-fi and space, but like seeing the photo booth and going, is that a time machine? Like, I just, all those little types of things are things that I love in the building and the writing. I said Warren, it's Winston. We didn't see him in here anywhere, but in the game, he's where they get the alcohol from. So if I was interviewing, Mazin or Druckmann, I'd be like, the guy who fell through the floor. One of the funniest moments, and like also like kind of surprising, scary, but then funny moments of the season, was that guy maybe a reference to Winston without actually saying his name. I thought they nailed everything when it came to the Mortal Kombat stuff, while I do kind of miss the intimacy of how they did it in the game by Riley telling Ellie, because it doesn't actually work. When it came to the game, I mean, the excitement around the sounds and the music, picking your player, living for getting off a fatality, and the fact that you might not know how to play the game, right? Like, it's clear that, like, Riley has played it a few times and Ellie hasn't. Ellie can get a W by smashing buttons if you don't know how to play, depending on the character you have. And that's something that exists in Mortal Kombat. I am someone who's not very good at that game, but I can smash buttons, and every once in a while I can get a W. So I loved how like that was represented there, and that's kind of part of the luck of it all. The doll store that was one of those things where, like I said last week, it kind of duped me because that happens in Colorado, not in the Boston Mall. But utilizing it here, I thought was really interesting, especially with what it tees up. Because when Ellie goes in there in Colorado, that zombie is dead, and it falls over, and she kind of freaks out. And the thing you need like falls out of his pocket, and you grab it, and you're on your way. So like the idea of consolidating that visual, and then going, what if he's not dead? Like if he slumped over, it was actually him getting off of the wall. And then again, the fact that one zombie could get both of these girls, I just think it's scarier. I think it's more impactful than a pack of zombies chasing them through the mall. Why that could give you a better action sequence. We got that, a couple weeks ago. So I like the intimacy, and this is a very intimate episode of just one zombie pulling all that stuff off. I just thought that, one, it gives you the perspective of like the two different kinds of fears that you can have with these zombies, and we've seen that with the clickers. But like, I don't know. I just like the idea of one zombie getting both of them rather than two different zombies amongst a horde getting both of them. I also like, again, in a world where perspective gets flipped a lot. In the game, Riley is the one that bounces during the fight because she hears the music and goes there. But you consolidate all that to the Halloween store, and then you can have Ellie storm off and come back. And I love that when she came back for screaming, they tricked me. I thought it was probably Riley screaming, and then it's the Halloween store, and then you get really excited because you're like, oh man, I didn't think they were going to do the Halloween store. I thought they were going to skip it. And that stuff was just wonderful. I love, again, the way that Mazin and Druckmann use zombies in this show. It's not a zombie show. Yes, zombies are part of the game, but I think you fight humans just as much, if not more. But the show, very much like the game, is about these characters and this journey that they're going on together and what it means for each of them. And in my opinion, using the infected to break up your peace or your comfort anytime you're getting comforting or comfortable, I think that's just more effective than having zombies all over the place. And when they do pop up, you are scared because you know it's about to disrupt whatever is going on in your story and your journey. And that's how it is in the game. You just have to fight lots and lots and lots of them. But the way they do it here, super effective for television for me, especially in this kind of storytelling. And then I also love in that moment, like, that Ellie is freaking out and being stoked about killing her first zombie. And in that excitement, Bella just able to drop it all off in the drop of a hat, dime in a bucket, drop in a bucket. Just like that, man. In an instant, flip it to the oh my, and then the rage and just not having had to deal with it at a stage where she could deal with it. I love seeing that reflection of her and Riley. And then I know I've been chatting a little bit here, but the last thing, because I really love this, and this is throughout the entire episode, and again speaks to shifting the perspective to really make it feel like it's coming from Ellie's perspective and not so much a shared story the way you kind of feel it in the video game. The amount of small, like close physical encounters between Ellie and Riley. And one, not just to shift to Ellie's perspective more, but like Riley knows that she's about to leave again. So she's withholding herself from the crush and the feelings that she has, right? Like Storm Reid talks about how she also has a crush on Ellie, and she, we don't hear it in the inside of the episode, but it's clear. She's trying to not lean into those things, and Ellie's constantly getting so close to it or is trying to push to get the answers there, right? I love that, like, you just go from the beginning, and anytime they're close to, like, just her trying to get Riley to say certain things, right? Like, questioning, did you really leave because you think you can free the QZ? Wanting to make sure she didn't leave because of her, right? Something that she clearly would have been thinking about besides thinking that Riley might be dead during this time. And you can go right to the fact that, like, she kind of checks her in that way. And then if it isn't Riley, like, leaving because of Ellie, well, then stay and we can change all this shit together, right? Like, I love that you're just feeling those and getting that off of small things that Ellie says and body language. And you take it, like, all the way up to the end where Riley finally says that she's leaving. And Ellie just straight up tries to get her to be like, just say that you have feelings for me. Like, she's trying so hard, and Riley won't go there. So what's the last thing that Ellie can possibly do? We're having fun. We're in this. Don't go. And then you get everything that you get, and it's just everything about last week was perfection. And now, for people who feel like, that was filler episode, or, oh man, like, where's the action and the pick-me-up? Well, folks, let me turn your attention to episode 8. There is, while I'm sure it won't be as much as my brain could think it is, because the stretch of the game has a lot going on, this 50 minutes of television that we're about to get, so say 45, it has the potential to be one of the most intense / tense stretches of the entire show thus far. It's one of these, like, when you talk about real world scary and real world fear and who the real enemy is in this game, right? Like, oh, it's a zombie game. Humans are worse than the zombies, I promise you that. And we are going to pull back the curtain a little bit on some of the darker areas in the world of The Last of Us as we get to go meet like an entire little colony of cannibals. These are people who are like, oh man, it's tough out here. I'll eat anything. And it's gonna be fun to watch how being portrayed here, Scott Shepherd will be playing David. It'll be really interesting to see how Shepherd and Ellie mesh, because in the game, you're now in this stretch where you're fending for yourself, and you got to protect Joel, and you need medicine. And David kind of comes up in a moment where Ellie's just taken down a deer. His clan could use meat that isn't human, and also could use some more meat that is human. It's right away you're like, this is a trap, and you don't know that they're cannibals, but like this is a trap, and the game does a pretty good job of making like David kind of wins you over because he kind of fills that spot for Joel for a little bit. So I'll be really interested to see how they play with that and how quickly or how fast they get to the flip so you can get into some of the more scary elements of this stretch. I don't expect to see, Bella take out 25 dudes or women. It's men and women, but everybody's just bundled up in things. But like, I don't expect her to be like killing this entire colony. Obviously, we've seen in the trailer Joel is going to show up, and that happens in the game as well. But I want to see Ellie hold her own against a few of them before she gets caught, and then once the fire starts, I need to feel fucking terrified, man. Like, I need to, like, if you can really make me nervous about, like, where's it coming from and when's it gonna happen while shit's getting crazy all around you, there's nothing that this show can't do. So, there we go, man. We wrapped up last week. We know what we're looking for this week. I need some hunting. I need some human hunting. I need something that's gonna bond David and Ellie. And, maybe if James is around a little bit longer than he is in the game, because Troy Baker's in here, I can see him very much being like what Perry was, as far as like kind of being the sidekick in this episode. But like I said, you need something that's going to make Ellie trust them and make us, as an audience, go, oh man, I don't want to lose this guy until I get Joel back. Because then when the flip happens, oh man, I need some effed up shit and some scary things from a human perspective in this episode. And like I said, sky's the limit. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get the episode up. Let's get ready to dive in to The Last of Us, Season 1, Episode 8, our penultimate episode. We know with HBO shows, the penultimate episode is always the big one. And this has got the potential. We're diving in to when we are in need. And like I said, when people are in need, effed up stuff, bro. So let's get into it, man. Here we go. And here comes our commercial. What are we teasing this week?
Out behind our backs. But there's a shape for things.
I have to get into this. I haven't watched Succession, but all of these shows that I'm seeing, right, like the Weekend Special, I need to watch that. That looked fantastic. Lizzie Olsen's new show that's coming out looks fantastic. I only ever hear fantastic things about Succession. Like, if there's one thing that Warner Brothers has over there at a studio that's got a lot of messy things going on, from a business perspective, HBO just, it brings the hits, it brings the. That's why, like, I'd be shocked if HBO is okay with this being just 2 seasons. I'm content with 2 seasons if you give me 2 perfect adaptations. But also, knowing who's involved and how good this is, you gotta tell me you wouldn't want an extra season in there. Three seasons, I think, is the perfect number for this show. But we will see what happens. But we got 2 more episodes before we start finding out like what the game plan will be for season 2 officially. I know that Druckmann has certainly teased part 2, but I think you could just call it, instead of calling it season 2, you could call it part 2. Tell stories that are in part 2, and then save like the main chunk of part 2 for the 3rd season. Oh man,
It ends this way for everyone sooner or later.
that's the other thing too that I love. When you look at the structure of the stories and the chapters that Druckmann has in the game, even when they're represented here, like I said, these 2 episodes mean so much to Ellie from an emotional driven standpoint, but also from knowing that she can survive, right? Like the excitement she has when she kills that zombie. It's, oh shit, man, like we survived a zombie. Like I don't need an adult. I can fend for myself. And then it's the, oh shit, I didn't fend for myself. That fear. I love the way that the show looks at love and looks at fear, and you get both in almost every episode in some way. And like to see that bit, not only, like I said, does it push the emotional standpoint, but Ellie can be a little fearless, you know, and that's one of those things when it comes to the zombie stuff, right? Zombies are super scary because, yeah, you might be immune from being bit, but like Tess says, you're not immune from being ripped apart. And I'll be fascinated to watch Bella and how her fear changes when presented with the absolute worst of humanity. Like we getting to the bottom of the barrel, man, when it comes to survival tactics with David and his clan. So I've constantly been excited and intrigued by Bella's performance, and this week should be no different. Perfect, man. If The Last of Us fades down, we are diving in. I said this in the trailer last week, though. Like, that looks exactly like the setup for the town in the game.
Revelation 21.
Oh, yes. Oh, we're
And
getting.
I saw a new heaven and a new earth.
Is there?
For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away.
Like that we're starting here. Give us perspective on
And I
this
heard
side.
a great voice out of heaven, saying, Behold,
Todd's Steakhouse.
the tabernacle of God is with men, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes.
These people don't look like they're thriving, by the way. And I'm sure they're looks like they're getting ready to dine. Maybe this is this girl's first experience into this foray. When we are in need, he shall provide.
I've read this passage too many times.
Who's sick? Who died? Who are they about to eat? Oh, has this little girl been bit?
Do you remember what comes next? And God will wipe away all tears from their eyes. There will be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither will there be any more pain, for the former things are past.
I am very nervous.
Do you know what that means?
A mixed emotion in this room.
Good.
Are they gonna kill this little girl?
When can we bury him?
Oh, maybe it's her brother or her dad. We don't bury nobody, honey. It's fucked up. I'm sorry. Clearly, it's impacting all of these people that they're about to eat this guy.
The ground is too cold to dig. We'll bury your father in the spring.
After we've eaten him. I was thinking you start here so that you clue the audience in. And I'm spoiling things for the episode because you guys should have already watched it. I always say I don't know why you would watch it this way. You can watch it that way. Oh.
How much do we have left?
Oh.
Venison, elk, rabbit.
Fucking ledge, man.
Keep the whole town on rations.
Troy Baker.
Maybe a week.
Oh, so maybe they haven't started eating people yet.
Josiah and Martin think they spotted some deer the other night. It was dark. See what you want to see sometimes. Anyway,
like that. Like that they gave Troy Baker that.
James, I sense doubt in there.
They haven't lost faith in you, David. They're just scared.
Not from them.
Ooh. Don't want to feel doubt from you, number 2.
I still
You,
believe.
number 1.
It's been, the last 6 months have been hard.
For all of us.
It's an area that we haven't really dived into. The faith element in a world that probably produce a lot of not non-faith feeling people, right? Whew. It's infected as Ellie needs legit meds. God, man. That's the kind of stuff that's not in the game. It's just like, it's bad. Just got no food, down to scraps. Leave this here for you, Joel. Like, coming at the realization that, like, she might be on her own soon. Time to go find
I'm gonna be right back, okay?
some real food. So this stretch opens in the game. It says winter, and it comes up. Arrow taking out a rabbit. And we haven't seen any bow and arrow, which is something I was hoping for. I also haven't seen Molotovs or Shanks or making a weapon, which I was hoping we might get somewhere in this season. You know, why carry bow and arrow when you have a rifle, right? Just would be dope to see Ellie, you know, shooting a bow. Let's just go jump to the dirt. So in the game, you hit the deer once, and it runs. Yeah, track it via the blood droppings, and then you hit it, I think, 2 more times. All right, cool. We are going to start with a rabbit. Just not an arrow. Lost it. Oh, ate shit. Oh, she ate shit good. It's the thing I love about this stretch, man. It's like Ellie learning and understanding survival. Like, very different kind of person she will be after all this. And not just what's going to happen with David, but like being able to survive without Joel for a stretch. And in the winter. Oh, there's our deer. Count distance, wind. Got it. And yep, just like the game, runs away. Yeah, man, that's just an endless forest. That is a bleeding deer. Got it.
Well, what do you think?
They got there first.
I don't see anybody. You think we can just take it? Quickly, whoever shot it's probably nearby.
Drop it, mother effers.
Don't!
Yep, there it is.
Drop your rifles!
She's trying to drop her voice. Nah, she's not hiding herself.
Turn and face me. Slow.
But she did drop a couple octaves.
Any sudden moves, I put one right between your eyes. Ditto for Buddy Boy.
Maybe she is trying to pass as a boy.
Turn around and walk away.
Okay.
Just go.
Okay, all I ask is 10 seconds of your time. I just want
I
to talk.
won't say it twice.
Please, just...
Dude, I love her.
My name is David. This is my friend James. We're from a larger group, women, children, and we're all very, very hungry.
I'm from a large group too. Also hungry.
Well, even so, you can't drag this back on your own.
He's got a point.
We can trade you for some of the deer. We have... What do you need? We have boots.
Medicine? Like for infections.
We do. Back in our village. You're welcome to follow us.
I'm not following you anywhere.
Yes.
Buddy Boy can go get it. He comes back, you get half the deer. Anyone else shows up, I put one
Put
right
one right between my...
Yeah, she will.
That's right.
I love this version of Ellie coming from Bella
All
right
right,
now.
go talk to Howard. He's got a case with some penicillin.
Again,
Bring back 2 bottles
drive.
and a syringe.
knowing where it comes from makes it more effective.
It's not code, James. Do as I said.
F around, buddy boy. Like that.
10 steps back.
Taking very tiny steps.
That's your dad's gun? You the one that's sick? That's why you're out here on your own?
Good girl.
It's a 4-mile round trip back to our settlement. It's gonna be a while before James gets back. I have some oil and matches in my pack. We could take shelter, start a fire.
Bring
Jake is
him with
trusting.
us.
And surprise any of you is dead on. Dead on right now. Scott Shepard. I'm liking his portrayal of David thus far.
You know, you really shouldn't be out here all on your own.
From where I'm sitting, you shouldn't be out here on your own.
Fair enough.
Perspective.
So, what's your name? It's hard to trust strangers, I know, but I honestly mean you no harm. And for what it's worth, there's room for you in our group, if you want.
You're inviting me to your hunger club?
Hungry.
It's true, we're hungry, but we're still here. I'm a decent man.
You're the leader?
Wasn't my choice, it was theirs, but yes.
They chose to follow you. Is this some weird cult thing?
Kinda.
Well, you sort of kind of got me there. I am a preacher, but just pretty standard Bible stuff. What?
The whole world ended and you still believe that shit.
I actually started believing after the world ended. Before that, I was a teacher.
Interesting.
Math. Taught kids about your age.
So you went from teacher to preacher because what, it fucking rhymes? But seriously,
Well, I found God after the apocalypse, which is either the best time or the worst time to find him. But when the Pittsburgh QZ fell in 17, Fireflies and Fedra,
Pittsburgh.
I left with a few others, and that's how I ended up with our flock.
It's a nice reference.
We'd settle somewhere, and then raiders would come, so we'd move again. And as we wandered, we picked up new people along the way until we ended up here.
well, your luck had to run out sooner or later.
Luck? There's no such thing as luck.
I love this right now.
No, I believe everything happens for a reason. It does. I can prove it to you.
Okay.
We didn't expect this winter to be so cruel. Nothing will grow. So I sent 4 of our people to a nearby town to scavenge what they could. And only 3 of them came back. And the one that didn't was a father. He had a daughter just like you. And her dad was taken from her. Turns out he was murdered by this crazy man.
Yup. Got a little girl
That
with him.
crazy man was traveling with a little girl.
This shift in the game
You see?
happens after a stretch where he fights off zombies with you.
Everything happens for a reason.
Terrifying.
James, lower the gun.
Terrifying.
She is the one that killed Alec, isn't she?
She didn't kill anybody. Lower the gun.
That gear shift nailed it.
Did you bring the medicine?
Yeah, but
Throw it to her.
David.
Just kind of lead us right back to the guy who did the killing.
Back away.
It's so nice to see Troy Baker, man.
I know you're not with a group. You won't survive for long out there. I can protect you.
So you're just gonna let her get away?
Oh man, but that was good. I mean, even just in that short bit, was able to get across some important things to make her kind of lull in. Like I said, he helps you fight off zombies in the game, so you buy him a little bit. And you could have had that conversation go a little more, right? Like, tough winter, we needed food, you needed medicine. Guy killed people of ours with a little girl, and now that little girl's right here.
Fuck it.
Oh god, oh god, oh god, I hate needles. Like in the wound. Oh man. Maybe does he reveal it before the zombies? See, this is where I should have played. Been busy. Not busier than Pedro, though, right, man? He's just out there being the world's daddy. God, I love the two of them so much. These psychos. They're not psychos because they're religious and they have faith. They're psychos because they're cannibals. I would have to imagine that, like, they're already cannibals.
What is it?
Venison.
Well, it seems like they have been getting food. Oh, so fascinating to see where they go. Oh, okay, yeah, all right. They're already eating people. They don't know that they're eating people. But it wasn't. I was wondering if they were gonna try to do a dupe, a bait and switch, where like, oh man, we're thinking it's venison because we just saw them kill a deer. Now they dragged the deer in, and everybody's gonna be like, what are we eating?
If you've heard a rumor, yes, we found a girl who was with the man who took Alec from us.
Who would have heard that rumor?
When the sun rises, I'll lead a group out to pick up her trail. Won't be hard to find in the snow.
Except that it is snowing.
And we'll bring that man to justice.
You should kill him. You should kill both of them.
Ooh, that little girl mad. I thought she was upset about eating people. She out here because her dad got killed by Joel. Oh, what the hell? The switches in David are horrifying. He just goes from here to here. Like that. Like, why?
I know you think you don't have a father anymore, but the truth is, Hannah, you will always have a father, and you will show him respect when he's speaking.
She talked out of line. Psycho! But yeah, man, like, just look around, man. His people are really thriving. Oy. So, they gotta be eating her dad, right? Like, is that what we're about to find out?
Lord, bless this food, and grant that we may thankful for thy mercies be. Teach us to know by whom we're fed. Bless us with Christ, the living bread.
Not crazy, right? Like, they are cannibals. Like, I feel like I'm losing my damn mind out here. But I'm pretty sure they're eating her dad. Like, this is a Cartman scenario. Those don't know South Park. Cartman once fed a kid his parents after they were killed because he thought that was the best way to be like, gotcha! Yeah, they're cannibals. I'm not crazy. Now you're making me second guess myself. I tell you though, for people who don't know, less pussy. Medicine's working. Like someone like my parents, right? Like they don't know what's coming or what's going on. They are doing a really good job of hiding the cannibalism. Remember the gamers? It's like very obvious. If I was sitting with my parents, it'd be kind of funny to be like, right now in this moment, go, they're eating her dad. Their faces probably wouldn't. I'm sure their faces will be priceless when the reveal happens. It's gonna be alright, Ellie. Uh-oh. Means peoples are comings. That freaking garage closed, girl. It is wild, though, that they found locations and, like, are able to pull off such accurate representations of the set pieces in the game.
If this man's not already dead, he's dangerous. About the girl. We bring her back with us.
Thinking she ain't dangerous.
I don't mean to question your sense of mercy, David. We can let her go. We bring that girl back with us. She's just another mouth to feed.
If we leave her out here, she'll die.
Yeah, maybe that's God's will.
Ooh. Careful, James. You about to get slapped. Look at the Troy Baker's like, come at me, bro. I've already survived you once, homie. That's got. I can't wait to hear his inside the episode. It's got to be so fascinating to be playing that character.
Joel, wake the fuck up, Joel.
And working with that group of people. Being like the OG Joel.
There are men coming, okay? I'm gonna lead them away from you. But if anybody makes it down here, you fucking kill them. You got it?
Yo. Dude. Bella is crushing it. I love seeing that switch for Ellie, right? Like, she has to become the protector. And it's so important to their relationship, to her character. Like, I tell you, as expected, she's making you believe. Yeah, they're gonna regret not trying to take her off the board. I promise you that. Yeah. Come get me, you sons of bitches.
Alive!
I hope the horse does not befall the same fate it gets in the game. And if it does, I hope it's not one of them things they show on camera. It takes a pretty gnarly spill. Oh, man, they did show it. Oh,
I got her!
not quite as gnarly. This is a pretty good close-up when you see it hit. But, poor horse, man. I mean, obviously not a real horse shot, CGI, whatnot, but oof. We should feel it though, right? Like that impact takes Ellie off the board for a hot sec. Oh man, they are really gonna wish David didn't stop them. We are very glad that David stopped them. So that Ellie. What's the point?
2 of you with me. Drag the horse. The rest of you, stay here, go door to door. You so hungry for vengeance? Deliver it.
Deliverance. This group of ragtag guys could totally be in the movie Deliverance. The other thing, I want to say, Sony put out like a Last of Us like interview part 1 with Mason, Druckmann, Pedro, and Bella. I think in that first part, Pedro talks about the fake snow that they have to create the snowstorm. There's a gnarly snowstorm coming when Joel gets up and out of that basement. And based on what he was saying, feels like it's going to be pretty game accurate. Let's see. Is he going to put together that something moved? Are we in the house? Yeah, we are. I don't think. Maybe somebody does come into that. But damn, man, I should have played this stretch of the game. I thought that guy had a tie on for a second. I was like, we wearing button downs, ties, and vests, or sweaters. Get up, Joel. Or play dead and then stab that dude in the head. Oh, he did get up. Where the hell is he? Is he hiding in the tub? I guess this is a sink. Oh, there's a door. Oh, he's behind you! Right in the neck. Need an easy kill. That's about all the strength Joel's gonna have. Oh. That's another thing this show is doing a really good job of. Death is not pretty or easy. Again, like just like sitting in that visual alone is just it's teasing the brutality that I think could be coming. Oh, shocking. This looks very game accurate.
I started worrying you wouldn't wake up.
Let me out.
Well, that's certainly the goal. Hungry?
Why am I in a cage?
Because I'm afraid of you. You're a dangerous person. You've certainly proven that.
The others, they want me to kill you for all that's happened.
Did you hear me say the others want to kill you?
Yeah.
But I stopped them.
Fuck you.
Oh, aren't you nice?
Why don't we just start with your name?
Eat shit.
Yeah.
You can't survive on your own. No one can, but I can help you. Let me protect you.
I'm not on my own.
And how is he? I can see how much you care about him, so I know it hurts.
She's so good.
You gotta face reality. That part of your life, it's ending. And what I'm offering you is a beginning.
Her facial expressions are so good.
Then yes, you are alone.
Oh, please, like, in a movie where Joel is, like a wrecking ball, who would have crashed through that and pushed his head through that branch.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Joel doing work, son. Yeah. You don't regret getting got by Joel. This is extremely game accurate, right down to the snow inside the house.
I don't know any girl.
Oh, in the knee.
He can't help you. You focus right here, or I'll pop your fucking kneecap off.
Get him, Joel.
Alive. Where? Fight! Oh, the town! What town? Overlay.
Joel's going real Mando right now.
It's not a real town name. It's a resort.
I can take you in. Warm or cold, man. Your choice. I mean, this guy's not gonna get a choice. Point.
You're gonna point to where we are and where your resort is. It better be the exact same spot your buddy points to.
Exact same. I also love the wonderful addition of those two characters from a couple episodes ago where Joel does this. See how he handles a non-violent interaction. Two different kinds of scary from Joel's perspective.
Go ask him, he'll tell you. I'm not lying.
You're still gonna die.
No! Jesus! No!
Sorry, friend. In this scenario, Jesus cannot save you. 'Cause I'm Joel, motherfucker.
I ain't telling you shit.
It's okay. No, I believe him.
No.
Oh, man. How I love Terminator Joel. He is an unrelenting force in the video game. You don't really see him get too shook. Man. What did Ellie see? Why is she freaking out? Oh, shit. It ain't venison. Same bit in the game. We ate him. You killed him. We ate him.
For what it's worth, this is just deer meat, I swear.
You're gonna chop me up into little pieces.
I'd rather not. Please,
I
just
will.
tell me your name.
You.
If you want to judge me,
Judge you? You're eating people, you sick fuck!
Yeah. Facts.
yes. There are only a few of us that know, but I would have told you. Sooner or later. I guess sooner.
You're an animal.
Well, yes, we all are. That's sort of the point.
It's heavy.
It was a last resort. You think it doesn't shame me? But what was I supposed to do? Let them starve? These people who put their lives in my hands, who expect me to keep them safe, who love me?
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You don't believe that.
Maybe that would have been God's will, David.
Didn't he take another man's life to save yours?
He was defending himself.
He was defending you, but you knew that. You see a lot. So do I. And you know what I see when I look at you?
A little
Me.
Joel. Ha, definitely not you, bruh.
You're a natural
Just a little
leader.
Joel.
You're smart, loyal,
Well, that's not incorrect.
violent.
Also correct. That's more Joel.
If I let you out of that cage right now, put that knife of yours in your hand, you'd stick me in a second. You have a violent heart, and I should know.
We know why now.
I've always had a violent heart, and I struggled with it for a long time, but then the world ended and I was shown the truth.
You're right. By God.
No, The cordyceps.
Cordyceps.
What does cordyceps do? Is it evil? No. It's fruitful. It multiplies. It feeds and protects its children. And it secures its future with violence if it must.
Not the enemy. Humans, on the other hand. I don't know if the cordyceps love.
Why are you telling me all of this?
Because you can handle it the way the others can't. They need God. They need heaven. They need a father. You don't. You're beyond that.
But she does.
I'm a shepherd surrounded by sheep, and all I want
It's another shepherd.
is an equal.
Tomato, tomato.
I can tell the others to stop looking for him. They'll spare him.
Really? Or just let him go?
Yes.
No, Ellie, be smarter.
They do what I tell them to do.
You will lose your followers.
They follow me,
At least some of them.
and they would follow us. Lord knows I could use the help. Look what's happened.
Getting back to pervy again for sure.
Think of what we could do together. As strong as we are,
Pervy and a cannibal. It's not a good combo.
we'd make
Dave.
this place perfect. We'd grow, spread out, and we'd do whatever we needed for our people. Imagine the life we could give them.
Bah! Come up, Ellie.
Imagine the life we could build.
Oh my god, you are a creep times a million. She knows how to play it though. Yeah! F your fingers! Get them keys! Oh god. Cushion City, man.
You little cunt.
Man, you got broken fingers now.
Let's see what I go tell the others now.
Ellie,
What?
tell them that Ellie is a little girl who broke her fucking finger!
How did you put it? Tiny little pieces?
God, man, they are crushing this on a week in, week out basis, man. I can't wait for what's coming. Here comes the storm. Joel's not a fan of filming in this actual cold weather while having fake snow blown at you. Very cold. Golly, I like the fact that, like, not only does he look like he is, like, surviving death, but he looks like a wild animal. You know? And we need that Joel a little bit here. Oh god, what's in here? Ellie's bag. These sons of bitches are gonna get it. That's what that face says. I tell you though, come Emmy time, if this set design crew, oh man, that hurts. But if this set design crew doesn't win all the Emmys, something wrong in the world, man. Oh yeah, there's the real effed up shit. Those are headless humans just hanging up there to be cooked. I love the other thing too, and I've always loved this about Ellie, is the way she can swing into having, you know, being a kid.
You had your chance.
I'm infected! I'm infected.
Yep, good move.
And now so are you.
Yeah, she bit you, motherfucker.
Look at it!
And she's got a fairly fresh bite on her arm. It's not just the old one. Oh no, I guess it is just the old.
What did you say? Everything happens for a reason, right?
David. No. No, she would have turned by now. This isn't real. That looks pretty fucking real to me.
That's all she needed. Oh man, James got it. Just like James got it. Poor Troy Baker. You know what I'd be down for though? If you brought him and Jeffrey Pierce back next season as two different characters. That currently is going on with Devon Sawa on Chucky, the TV show. Spoilers if you haven't watched. He has characters. His characters die, and then he comes back as a new character. I'd love to see that for Troy Baker and Jeffrey Pierce. Jeffrey Pierce definitely got the cooler death, but I think Troy got the one that needs it. Oh yeah, here comes the fire. So this stretch of the game is like one of the most tense, terrifying. Like, David comes up from behind on you so many times, and he sneaks just as well as you do. So when you like drop down to like listen to try to figure out where he is in a room, he will get you. Recreate that vibe right now, and be so
Doors
happy.
are locked, and I have the keys. Ellie? Ellie!
Dude. Oh God, they're doing this so well.
Ellie!
This dude, Scott Shepherd, man.
No one infected fights this hard to stay alive. So, how did you do it?
Recreating so
What's
well.
the secret? Or are you just that fucking special? No one likes being humiliated, Ellie. You don't know how good I am!
This is so good.
If you would just let me!
Absolutely nailing it.
Well, I have news for you. Neither one of us is dying today. You see, I've changed my mind. I've decided you do need a father.
This guy is
I'm gonna keep you, and I'm gonna teach you.
terrifying on like deepest levels.
Ellie.
Get him. Yes, it's gonna take multiple shots. That's something in the game that like you gotta stab him, I think 3 times. I was hoping that they were gonna make it multiple, like have to get it more than one time. Oh my God, dude, the game accuracy is unreal right now.
Oh, I thought you already knew. The fighting is the part I like the most.
Oh.
There's no fear in love.
Get it! Yup. Yo, that was, again, Druckmann and Mason, they love to stay longer than they do in the game. I'd have to sync it. I will when I edit. I think there were more whacks, and that was a longer stretch than it was in the game.
Look, it's me. It's okay, baby girl. I got you. I got you.
Oh my God, their faces are breaking my heart. Dude, I told you, man. I mean, man. The freaking Bella's performance, I'm continually dumbfounded on how people like keep doubting this girl. Like, the fact there's anybody left to doubt this girl, this person. I know she came out before the show as non-binary, although I don't believe she said anything about pronouns. And the fact that she's playing Ellie, I keep going. So I apologize if that's incorrect. But, I mean, people that are doubting Bella Ramsey, like, if you're still doubting her after this episode, I mean, you can just F off as far as I'm concerned. The control that she has, man, to go from that fear, to that rage, to that break. Like, that got me dead center, man. Next
After all we've
week,
been through,
the finale.
be for nothing.
One episode.
There's no halfway with this. We finished what we started.
Yup. Oh man, next week is gonna be good. I heard it confirmed 45 minutes, but they do a lot.
You see Joel is slowly recovering because Ellie was able to get him medicine, and you're waiting for him to do the traditional hero thing.
Yep, save the day.
He's gonna save Ellie, and then they can continue on the journey.
Nope, this is about Ellie.
We wanted none of that.
Thank God for you, Neil Druckmann. It's one of the best moments in the game. You do expect Joel, because you're going back and forth. He's coming in.
That one was really cold.
Yeah.
And it needed to be, because the episode in many ways is about deprivation.
Yep.
Shooting in February in Calgary.
February in Calgary. Jeez.
And there was 3 or 4 house-size window machines
House sized.
pummeling me with snow.
Yeah, so that was hard.
I friggin' love Pedro. I mean, the recreations, man.
So we find ourselves in this darkest place with the darkest version of Joel. And Ellie is forced to survive on her own.
Yup.
This sequence is the thing that inspired me, or like made me want to make the game.
I believe that.
It's this really wonderful moment when you watch people play it, because they almost always say, "Oh my God, I'm Ellie."
Yep. Oh, it's so satisfying when it finally happens in the game. She makes you want to be able to play as her.
Naturally, she obviously isn't going to trust a random guy and his buddy in the middle of a snowy forest.
David presents as the good dad.
He does present.
If maybe she has met the one good person out there. We, of course, see fairly early on that there's also a very dark part of David.
But if anybody makes it down here, you fucking kill them. You got it?
Love that. So well executed. Oh, is this how they shot the horse?
When he captures Ellie,
Yeah, I was like, how'd they shoot this? This had to be CGI. No, they did fake horse and... It's gotta be combo CGI.
and we also come to understand 2 things that maybe weren't immediately clear. One is that David is a bad father in a terrible bad way.
Yup.
And the other is that these people that Ellie finds herself amongst have been eating their own dead.
Really, what he'd like is for her to be his little minion, his little wife. Once Ellie begins to realize that, the relationship becomes a lot more tense and a lot more scary and a lot more dangerous.
They nailed that gear shift. Both times David does it. Shepard was excellent.
She's surprised by the accusation. She has no choice but to recognize some truth in that, and certainly David believes he's about to turn her.
Oh, man. Perfect casting. Like, he just...
I've always had a violent heart.
On, like, first look, seems trusting, but, like...
Absolutely true, because
terrifying.
he knows it's in him. He says, "You have a violent heart."
It is true.
That is something that Neil and I talked about quite a bit. It's not in the game. As much as we love her, we also have to be a little scared of her.
We do. That's a great ad.
Who broke your fucking fingers?
Oh! Love that. All right, give us Troy.
My connection to this,
Troy!
really this world is a little bit more unique than others.
Oh, man.
Exists in the game to endear David to Ellie and to see this come to life in a completely different way. It's been a mind trip, man. It really has been.
Right? Like...
David.
It's so cool. Yeah, it's so cool.
Playing any character is an upgrade from what I thought I was going to be able to do. I thought I was going to be like a clicker.
Come on, Troy.
Ellie gets to demonstrate this incredible moment of, intellect and resilience, and also just ferocious violence. And I slump up against this thing and I slide down, and I was like, that looks awesome.
Yeah, dude. That's what I wanted to hear from Jeffrey Pierce with the friggin' being ripped apart by a bloater.
Good I am!
I wish we could have gotten more from Troy. I could listen to Troy Baker talk about this experience. probably for hours.
In the end, the only person who can save Ellie is Ellie.
It's Ellie. Yep.
How?
Violence. Yeah. And like the most violent.
It scars her in a way that forever changes her.
Mm-hmm. Just a different person now, man. This break is so good.
Joel saves her, but more emotionally. She's just so broken, and she doesn't know what to say, and she's covered in blood. She just looks him right in the eye, and she leans forward and hugs him.
Baby girl. When he says baby girl, oh, God.
And all he can say is this thing that he hasn't said in 20 years, which is baby girl.
At the end of this story, you can see something snap in her, and the question is it permanent, or can she find her way back?
Oh, and will we have plenty of time to dissect and look at that concept, right? It's so hard to know the whole thing and like not say anything. But that is something that I love about Neil Druckmann's story. When you look at both games and how that moment, like they said, it's that defining moment. And is it a permanent definition or is it a temporary definition? Can Ellie come back from that? It's one of the things that you won't really get next episode, right? I mean, we're right at the end of the game. We've got this last little run, and it will continue to be intense, and it's gonna probably continue to be violent. But one of the things that Druckmann really kind of works throughout part 2 is Ellie savable at this point? And when you tack on, and it's one of these things where like that moment is so beautiful, but I think it really, kind of underlines why I feel like we need a season in between the two game stories. While I 100% buy Bella doing everything that she does in this episode, Bella being as violent as Ellie needs to be, getting to these points, the other thing, and it's the thing that I love about what Bella is doing, is when you watch her face, you still see the kid in there, man. I mean, when she's on that table and they're gonna maybe start chopping her up while she is alive, you see that, like, there's a different level of fear. Like, put an adult in that situation and you will revert to, a portion of that kind of fear. But the look in Ellie's face in that moment is like just the absolute terrified kid. Like the thing that you're most scared of in the world. Like the minute that I come into contact with a spider that is bigger than this, doesn't have to be a very big spider, that kind of fear kind of lives in me. That's like my childhood fear. Like if I had something that would make me revert to being a child, that's what it is. And the same type of child fear and brokenness is what you see at the end, right? That, like, the way that she responds to Joel, while 100% accurate to this version of the character, it would not be for Ellie in part 2. 7 years in this world is a really long time, and she grows up a ton just in this story alone. So tack 7 more years of that on, and total, right, because she's only been a pandemic baby, like you total up the whole thing, you're at 21 years of life, for Ellie by the time you get to part 2. And I understand that Bella is almost that age in real life, but I think from a visualization standpoint as a viewer, I am identifying this version of Bella with a 14-year-old. And she's playing it that way. Very similar, and it speaks to the level of acting talent that she has. Very similarly to how I felt Catherine Newton played her own age down to play Cassie in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That character is not as old as Newton is, and she plays down quite well. And maybe you could get that from Bella, right? Like, I think Bella still looks a little kid-like. I think there's still some maturation that'll probably happen to her over the next, few years. But it is one of these, like, identifying this version of the character with, someone who might be in her 20s but is playing down to a 14. Like, I feel like you need that extra thing in the middle to kind of allow her to grow up a little bit more, where we can kind of start feeling like Bella is an adult in the series before taking on part 2, because like I said, you are really gonna dive into and analyze and look at if Ellie can come back from that moment. Is she that person for forever, or can she be redeemed? Can she be saved, so to speak? And that's, again, something else where that 7-year jump just racks up, the things that Ellie will have done. So watching all of that transpire on Bella's face, I mean, that is A-level acting at its finest. Absolutely at its finest. And then flip it over to Joel, where you're physically asking him to do the least, right? For 2 episodes now, man, Joel just been on the ground most of the time. But watching Pedro find the wherewithal to get up, find the wherewithal to stab the guy, but not be able to finish him, right? Like, he can stab him and he can hold it there, but he can't make it quick. And that's, again, one of those spots where, whether it's a moment of beauty or love or horror or violence, I love that Mazin and Druckmann continually choose to stay in moments longer than Druckmann had the game stay. It's one of those things that makes you feel it. It's one of those things where, in an episode that really shouldn't elicit a ton of emotion, I don't think, from like a emotionally wrecked standpoint, staying in those moments longer gets you there, right? Like, I didn't physically roll any tears, but I started to feel it coming right at the end of that episode, because you sit in, like, I feel like if she's one whack too, like one more whack too much, one less whack too little, for us to feel what we feel when Bella breaks into Joel's arms. It's just like, that's the, that's just, I'm obsessed with it. But like I said, when you're looking at Joel, he is they choose to stay in that moment where it's like, like I said, two sides of the same coin. Ellie and Joel are very much the same person on so many different levels. And, you see the violence and rage just coming out of Ellie, and, going about it the most brutal way possible. And you stay on that constant hitting as long as Joel's got to hold it there. And while we don't see David, we're just seeing the blood hit Bella's face, we live through a less brutal kill, but one that is just as brutal, I think, to watch when you're watching the slow death. And from there, for Joel to then have the gusto to, you know what? Every second that you can get, you gotta fight for it, for that person. And it is. Joel goes into parent mode and musters up, via adrenaline and fear, enough energy to take out 4 dudes and get all the way to the end. And it's one of those, like, when you see him walking up on that place, like Mazin said, you're expecting him to go save the day. He's gonna kill David. Ellie's character needs to, but I also think, like, if you think about it, when you're watching it, like, in live action, it's not a video game, right? Like, they'll make you move slow or limp around, or, like, things will pulse red. But watching a human being do it, you get to Joel getting to Ellie. I don't know if Joel's got enough in the tank to even be able to save Ellie. Like, it's very possible if Joel goes in there and tries to save Ellie, either everybody dies or Joel and David die and Ellie gets out. So, like, it's one of those where it's like you see Joel muster up everything he's got to keep going to try to save this little girl. And there's, as much as there's the sense of relief in she's alive, she's okay, I physically have her and I'm not going to let her go, right? Like, this is the moment for Joel. While the bonding has certainly already started to happen, this is the moment that this little girl becomes his surrogate daughter. It's the moment that, you know, he calls her baby girl. He falls right back into it, right? And being hurt and zapped of energy. He's not thinking about Ellie in this moment, per se. He is just thinking about someone that is his daughter. And I don't think that he's necessarily thinking about Sarah in that moment. It's just like, this person is my daughter. I am a father. I'm going to protect her the rest of the way. I won't let her go. And that's a huge driving motivational force for Joel as a character the rest of the story, and creates some really interesting dynamics between the two of them in part 2. Like, how this moment defines the two characters. It's interesting to see how something that clearly is bringing them together can also play into the things that could create friction between these characters. And like any father-daughter, there's going to be that friction. There's going to be that thing that, you know, as a young girl, Ellie will, you know, butt up against it. And so much of those things that they'll be conflicted with each other on in part 2 come right out of this moment. And like I said, to feel the emotional weight of it, the way that it punches, I don't think was something I would have expected at that point in the episode, but the performance of the two characters and just staying in it a little bit longer gets you there. And like I said, there's, I think, relief in Joel in that she's okay, but there's also relief in, I didn't have to be the one to save her, because I don't know if I could have. And that's something that you don't necessarily feel in the game, but that's what I'm feeling in that moment from the performance between, you know, from Pedro and stuff that you're getting from Bella. And God, I just love the two of them, man. Like, it's one of these, like, you've been building to the two of them becoming a legit duo throughout most of the season, and to now experience, like, it's like they finally become that duo, and then we rip it away from the audience, right? Joel's sidelined for an episode and a half. And it's a major bit for Ellie's character, but, like, it's also one of those moments where, man, when they get back together, like, you feel what these two mean to each other and what they mean to us. And I think, you know, obviously having played the game, and I've talked about how I think when you play a game, you have a different experience because you are those people. You don't have that in a show, but the performances and the writing have been so riveting and so good and so, and like, just, they suck you in. Like, I get lost in this show. Like, there are times where the episode ends, and while I can continue to talk and you know, say things that make sense to you guys, there have been times where my brain has literally had to, like, re-piece together the reality around me to remind me, like, I'm not in it right now. But I think that's the beauty and the genius of what Mazin and Druckmann as a combined duo themselves are able to do with this show, where I think through the television medium, you are connecting, maybe not as quickly and as strongly because you're not being those characters, but this show is getting you to all of the same emotional places, and that's just tremendous. You know, and that's the thing that's the hardest thing to do when you're adapting video games that have stories. Something like Sonic the Hedgehog, what they're doing right now is perfect. That doesn't exist in any of the games. You're pulling elements from different places, but like that is an original story. Something like this, or another thing in that part 1 interview that Sony dropped last week, Druckmann talks about how, like, you know, when he made this game, Naughty Dog wasn't doing a lot, and making this game, he never thought that it would become as popular as it was, let alone just be anything that can compete with Uncharted on the PlayStation platform. Like, Uncharted is PlayStation's crown jewel game. You know, it's one that's been around, I want to say it was either PS2 or PS3, but it's been around, I'm pretty sure it's 2. It might have, the first one, I don't think the first one came out with PS1. But regardless, it's one of those originals that's been around the whole run. But unlike, say, something like Crash Bandicoot, which, you know, kind of plays more to your Super Mario Brothers or Sonic the Hedgehog, Uncharted was this game that dove into the idea of a cinematic story and delivering it in this unbelievable gameplay. It was like bringing Indiana Jones to life in some respects. And, you know, Druckmann, rightfully so, never could have imagined that this is something that could compete with that. And that storytelling, while completely different than what we have going on with this, is something that is what drives that series. It's the character. It's the relationships that character has with other people. It's the story of that character that drives that game and sets up the gameplay that's fun. All the shooting and the taking out of people and solving puzzles and, you know, things that you would consolidate in a show. But when you see, like, what, you know, adventure is a little bit different than post-apocalyptic zombie horror. But when you look at the games side by side in the game world, they can stand up to each other. You look at that movie versus this show, there's no comparison, because you're just able to accomplish so much more as far as emotionally connecting you with a character. Yes, can you accomplish it in a 2.5-hour movie or a 2-hour movie or even a 90-minute movie? Absolutely. But when you're playing to an audience that has lived as these characters, you have to, there's just not enough time for me in a movie. And you could see it in Uncharted. Like, there were moments that were like right out of the game where I was like, oh man, they nailed that. But then because you've only got so much time on the back end, well, we got to change and shift some other things around to make, you know, the rest of our plotline work. I'm telling you, one, put a mustache on Mark Wahlberg from start to finish in the movie immediately becomes better. The same way as make an ugly Sonic look like actual Sonic immediately makes that movie better. I think if Uncharted had been a series, it would have worked so much better, because there is so much story and so much to Nate's character and to Sully's character and that relationship that you just don't have enough time to build that emotionally and deliver the action and the adventure that you're expecting in that game. And that's where you get to a show like this and you go, man, like, you look at what Druckmann did from a writing standpoint to get the game made, but when you shifted it to bring it to a different medium, you chose the right one, because we can take the time to live in a moment longer. If this was a movie, the moments that we spend 5, 10, 15 extra seconds on, those are going to get chopped in a movie when you're trying to consolidate and keep it inside of a running time and telling all the story that you have to tell. And that's why so many video game movies don't work. But something like this, well, shit, slow it down. Match it right up with the game. Let's accomplish, and that's the thing that I love about Mason and Druckmann. It's let's accomplish what this piece of the story does. You look at Chapter 1, what does Chapter 1 accomplish? Okay, cool. How do we translate that to an hour of television? Don't look at it having to tackle the whole story. Break it down the same way the game's broken down. And that's why this thing is working. And then when it comes to the other things that are in this episode, I said it many times, and I love the fact that a man who is, you know, acting as a shepherd in the show, his last name is Shepherd. It's like it was meant to be, so to speak, you know, like some things just happen for a reason. But Scott Shepherd was spectacular. Very much so. They kind of went about that relationship and the things that they did very much how I figured they would. In the game, like I said, there's a stretch before the turn happens where while you're waiting for James to come back, zombies start attacking this like mill silo thing that you're in. It's not a windmill. Baker said it, but like where they're chilling is, like a section where it's got a couple different levels. There's like a little bridge thing that you can run across, but you are taking out a ton of zombies, including a bloater, with David. And it's one of these things where, like Druckmann said, that story was the impetus for everything that came. It was the inspiration to make the entire game. And when you look at that from the storytelling perspective, it's one of those where you are now at a point where, like you said, as a player, you're like, oh shit, I'm finally I'm getting to play as Ellie, right? Like it's one of these where you're Joel all the way up until here. And when you finally, like, when it sinks in that, like, they just took Joel off the board, oh man, there is a level of fear out there. You know what I mean? Like, you survive those zombies and you're like, thank God for this David guy, man. Like, he's gonna fill this gap that I've got where, this little girl doesn't have Joel. And in surviving that with him, and then having the conversations that you have with him leading up to and right after, before James gets there, you really do feel a sense of trust. Like, you're like, shit, man, this guy's down to ride. Okay, like we've got a potential solution to help us get to whatever the next thing is. And then all of a sudden you get through all that zombie fighting, and the conversation is like so spot on, where it's like it's starting out as one thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, and there were 4 of my men, three of them were killed, and the last one that came back talked about how this crazed man killed our guys, and he was riding with this little girl. And all of a sudden, I mean, it is a moment in the game where you're like, oh shit, the guys that we killed at the university, everything happens for a reason, right? Leads you to that point. Oh my, there are consequences to the things that we do. It's really one of the first times, outside of Joel kind of hinting at the fact that he had done similar things to the people that tried to ambush them and killed innocent people, most likely. Like, you just have a different understanding of, oh man, like, all these nameless people that I've been taking out, they do have names, and they do have people. And on the other side of that, those people can be kind of angry. And that's one of the things I loved about the show, where it's like, let's give us a little bit of that perspective from those groups that you don't get in the game. Give them names to the faces before we even get to this moment. And it's like you're suddenly hit with, fuck. Like, that's all. Like, this person's about to become a villain. And sure enough, you get away just like they do there, because they hope that that's going to lead them to it. And Ellie, same thing, gets there, gets Joel the medicine, shuts everything tight, and is like, I gotta go lead these guys away from us because they're getting close. And the way she gets caught, everything that goes down, spot on. And it tees up this character of David as someone where it's like, for a second you thought, oh my gosh, whew, thank goodness I got this guy, to this is probably the most terrifying character in the entire video game. And the moment you find out that they are feeding people humans and they're not just like it, oh man, dude, it's just like another level of evil. And Shepard's performance is just, his face was just perfect. Like, there was this kind of comfortingness to him, and having him be a preacher, and kind of talking about like bringing these people together and doing what you got to do to help this group survive, makes him kind of endearing. And you see it in Ellie. Like, Bella plays it really well, where you kind of start to see the guard come down, and then that shift, whew, And the same thing when you find out that they're cannibals. That shift, all of a sudden you're like, this is a different game. Like, I just thought that this guy was like out for revenge. This guy is not only out for revenge, he's cutting people up and feeding them to his flock and not telling them. Like, and the whole bit, I mean, what they added in that space and how they used him being able to recognize violence and see it in Ellie and get us that element was so well executed. And then the whole scene through the kitchen and dining room area, like, while not nearly as long and you don't get jumped from behind, which I didn't expect, but you felt the tension. You felt that it was going to take more than one shot to take this guy down. And even after you give him a stab, that's probably going to sideline him for a couple days if he survives. The physicality of just Ellie is a little girl. No matter how tough, no matter how violent she is, she can still get tossed around. And that's what makes how hard she fights and her tenacity and ferociousness and how that plays into the violence makes that character so fascinating. But I could not have been happier with what Scott Shepherd did. I think he absolutely crushed it. And as you know, I love Troy Baker. I mean, he's Joel, you know, and to see him get to play, like I said, a character that means something very different to Ellie and Joel than it would to David and James. Kind of a cool thing to kind of flip-flop for Baker, where it's like, oh man, I get to be like one of the things that I was scared of when we were making the video games. So yeah, I mean, everything that Mazin continues to do from a writing standpoint and what him and Druckmann together have come up with the additions and then the just pitch perfect reenactments of certain sequences, like if you're not in, I don't know what else the show's got to do. And if you saw my non-spoiler, you know, a set of 5s. Once again, this thing is hitting full gear, and it is just perfect. The adaptation is flawless. Once again, much like last week, a lot of direct video game adaptation, but the additions that are put in there always enhance the material, and everything that the last 2 episodes did really gets Ellie to a different place, gets Bella to a different place, and it gets the audience's understanding of this character to a different place. And that was super important for me. And while I do think it didn't accomplish I could buy Bella, you know, being 7 years older, Ellie, everything that you need is certainly there. And, you know, there's definitely years in between filming and whatnot, and by the time they get to writing season 2 and filming, it's probably not gonna hit, you know, this time next year, so it could work. But either way, I mean, just everything for one season of television, I've never seen anybody adapt a video game piece of material this well. And I'm just, I'm blown away on a weekly basis. And that's the other thing too that I love about the show is like, it's not just what you're picking up in the moment. You go back, you rewatch, you dive in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my Lord, man, there's just so much stuff packed in here that's just beautiful and genius. And like I said, whether it's how you're looking at love, how you're looking at fear, the way that you can trust somebody and how that can spin on a dime in this world, it's just all being executed to perfection for me. So I'm going to shut up. I think I've talked long enough for you guys once again around The Last of Us. I really do appreciate all you guys that talk about how much you appreciate like my dissection of the episodes and the knowledge and thoughts I bring, you know, with my perspective having played the game, because a lot of you haven't played the game. So I certainly appreciate you guys riding out all these long ass videos with me and how much that I talk and dive into, because I love this shit so much. But like I said, it's your turn, man. I want to know what you guys are thinking. For you video gamers, did this episode and this combo 1-2 punch do what you were hoping it would do for Ellie? Do you think Bella is capturing it? Do you see everything you need to see here from specifically Bella, but just for in general, like knowing we're getting a season 2, knowing we're going to get to keep this story going? Is it getting better for you? For me, like I said, it seems like the level is just man, I mean, like, while I would rank this my favorite or best up, like, they're just upping it every week. So what is that doing for you? Is it upping itself every week? What's working? What's not? If you haven't played the game, how did this emotionally hit you? How did the finding out that David is a cannibal and they've been feeding people to his people but not telling them? How did that impact you? Were you as shocked looking as Ellie was in that moment, where it was like, that's a human, you are eating people? How did that land for you? Did this episode make you understand that, like, the zombies and the cordyceps are not the villains of this world? How did that fear shift hit for you? What did you think of the performances, Bella, Pedro? I think Pedro's got a really interesting performance in here, and like I said, you get a lot even though he doesn't necessarily have a ton in there. He's just bringing so much. So what's working, what's not, man? Good, bad, indifferent on all those things. And The Last of Us, Season 1, Episode 8. Put it down below in the comment section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you want to be here for the finale next week, oh man, I hate that it's going up against the Oscars. Oscars are like the one award show I always look forward to watching. And this year in particular, with Everything Everywhere All at Once, probably going to be damn close to sweeping the majors. I don't think it's going to get supporting actor, even though Jamie Lee Curtis got that last go at the SAGs. I really feel like that's a moment where actors get it. I think the SAGs, that was a really nice moment, a wonderful moment for, like, Jamie Lee Curtis to kind of get recognized for a great performance in a movie that's, like, really going to crush it. But, like, God, I hated it. Like, I'm glad it's only 45 minutes. We can get in and out a little bit quicker than normal. But, like, it's a conundrum. It's a conundrum because the Oscars are a big night. But you want to be here to find out what I think about the Oscars. Twitter, I'll post my picks. I usually do pretty well. So if you're in any pools, maybe you can look at some of the advice and where I'm going. You want to be here for that. The reactions and the thoughts on the finale. The other dad that Pedro is back. Our little buddy Grogu is over here. He's back. If you want to be here for my coverage around the Mandalorian and this guy, you just like, the general vibe and the things the Seaman's got to say, and you want to show a little love and support, you haven't, hey, come join Seamaniac Nation, man. We're an ever-growing crew. And the more people that come on, the happier I get, because I just love talking movies with people. So if you want to join that crew, it's super easy. All you got to do, jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts so you know when videos are coming. And until next time, for the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the Seaman. I'm signing off. Peace.
Oh, you guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got two video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those Seaman goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.